Welcome to the Backyard Blitz. I'm Brandon Peebler. This is Ronnie Eastham. You can find us on Twitter at the BY Blitz. Follow me at Peebler22 at Ronnie Eastham. Check us out on YouTube as well. Ronnie, how you doing, man? It's been a long week, it seems like, and we got some more football stuff that we got to talk about.
It's been too long of a week, I tell you. How you been? How's it going?
I've been good. Still waiting for Jimmy Garoppolo to get traded. Feels like it's never going to happen. They've had more conversation around. It seems like they're waiting for him to get healthy and make a decision there. But I think we're day 63 or 64 into the Jimmy G watch, so it's getting a little redundant there. But other than that, you had some big news that we're going to talk about as far as Stefon Diggs coming up around the corner.
Yeah, excited to hear that one. Maybe I can go play some catch with him again here soon.
Yeah, speaking of playing, we played in our Madden franchise, Ronnie, and I haven't mentioned it at all, but I'm going to mention it now. How'd that go? How'd that game go, Ronnie?
It didn't go well. It did not go well. The Super Bowl that I won was much better.
Not ever going to happen again. For those that don't know, I beat the brakes off Ronnie this last week. It felt good, but it was only a regular season game, like Ronnie mentioned. So there's still some work to be done. But we got some real football news that we want to talk about, and that's DeVante Parker. He was traded to the Patriots early on. It was over the weekend, really. So the Dolphins traded receiver DeVante Parker to the Patriots. The Patriots gave up a 2023 third-round pick in exchange for DeVante Parker, and so basically a swap for a 2022 fifth-rounder. So the Dolphins are going to, let's see. Yeah, so the Patriots, they gave up a third-rounder, and the Dolphins, they're going to get a fifth-rounder, or the Patriots are going to get a fifth-rounder and DeVante Parker. What are your thoughts on that trade? It seems like whenever there's a guy that has any star power in the league, and the Patriots are involved, it seems like they still end up going there. It doesn't matter if TB12's there or not. But I like this for DeVante Parker. But you're the man of the AFC East, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. I mean, he's going from Tua to Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is a little bit of a step up, but he's not the type of quarterback at this point in his career that's going to lift up a wide receiver. DeVante Parker can be good, but he struggled to stay healthy, for one. His best season in 2019, 72 catches, 1,200 yards. In fact, I remember thinking going into the next year, I had him a little high on my fantasy football rankings. Grabbed him up, and yeah, that didn't go well. But that's his only season of 1,000+ yards. It's his only season where he's had a few seasons where he's had over 50, but the only one over 60. So he hasn't really risen to the occasion. He hasn't really stepped up as a true number one and maintained that spot. And I don't see it happening with Mac Jones as a quarterback. So I'm not too concerned about it. And obviously, I don't think the Dolphins are if they're going to trade somebody within the division.
Yeah, it was very surprising. Normally, you don't see trades within the division. This is one of those rare type of ones. I can't imagine Buffalo and New England really making any trades.
That has happened, though.
In the past, it has. It absolutely has. Drew Bledsoe. I mean, that was a big one, right? So I definitely think
started out big.
It did. Yeah. And then, I mean, I kind of feel bad for Drew there, but for DeVante Parker, I think he needed to get out of Miami, obviously, with all the moves that they made regarding Tyreek Hill. I think he needed a change of scenery. I like him in New England. I don't know what New England's going to run, though. Josh McDaniels gone, right? So they're pretty starved at the receiver position. I'm a big fan of Kendrick Bourne. I feel like he had a really big it was more of a breakout year for him. He had a lot of catches, a lot of yards. For him, he was an undrafted guy out of the Eastern Washington University, played for the 49ers for a while. So I do like DeVante Parker going there. But again, Mac Jones, he kind of surprised us last year with some of the things that he was able to do. So I'm looking to see how he's able to utilize his weapons, but there's a lot of question marks in New England. I don't think it's going to be the team that was last year that really, you know, was really a game from being the number one seed in the AFC last year, come playoff time, the way that everything was swapping back and forth. But I'm curious to see what Devontae Parker does. But as far as fantasy goes, I don't know if I have him high up on my radar to be like, oh, he's with the Patriots. I'm gonna keep that in my back
No,
pocket.
definitely not this season. And if you think about past history with the Patriots, outside of Wes Welker back in the day or Edelman, they've never really had a wide receiver that you could count on for fantasy wise. You'd have to go all the way back to Randy Moss that season. But so with the Patriots, Jacoby Myers, I would consider as their number one. Do you think Parker is a step up from that?
Experience wise, yeah. I think he is experience wise. Now, skill wise, I don't know. I actually wouldn't be surprised to see him in the slot. And I think that he could have a lot of success as a slot receiver. He doesn't have a lot of top end speed, but it seems like he's able to gain separation. And I can see them using him as a slot receiver with Kendrick Bourne on the outside and seeing how that works out. Now, one thing this means for sure is I'm pretty sure N'Keal Harry's gone.
Yeah.
They've been looking to trade him for 2 years and nobody wants to bite the bullet. I
No.
wouldn't be surprised if he gets just outright released here pretty soon.
Yeah, somebody will kick those tires again, I'm sure. But yeah, and they're not going to trade for him.
No, I doubt it. So from one AFC East receiver to another, your boy Stephon Diggs,
Stephon Diggs.
they backed up the Brinks truck for him today.
They did 4 years. I've heard a couple of different numbers actually. I've heard a 96 million, but I also heard 104. I believe the 104 is with some incentives. It's a great extension. It guarantees he's going to be there for another 4 years. I think it's great. The way he left Minnesota, I know there's some people out there that kind of hold that against him, but the guy that a lot of the Vikings players have I guess come to known, or fans, sorry, not players, is not the same guy that I've seen. And you hear the guys in the locker room talk about him being nothing but a wonderful and great team player. So I don't, and as I've mentioned on the show, I've personally had an interaction with him playing catch at the stadium pregame. Not a lot of guys do that. There are some, but there's not too many. But
Yeah.
he's came in, he's done his job. He's played extremely well. He's elevated those around him. I think he's been great for Gabe Davis. I think that bond and that tutelage that he's been able to provide there is we're starting to see that really come to fruition with Davis. So I think it's fantastic. Another 4 years, and I think he's still in his prime. It's going to be fun to see him and Allen for the next 4.
And it sounds like he had a tweet today that made it sound like he wanted to retire a Buffalo Bill. He loves it there. Obviously, it's a great situation for him, both competitive wise. It seems like he has some really great chemistry with Josh Allen. And Buffalo, I mean, you've spoke about it a lot, the fan base, how that city in Orchard Park, really, take to that team. And I can see why, they have the fan base they do. I can see why the players love going there. Just thinking about it from the outside perspective, I don't know if I would ever want to do that. The cold, the wind, the snow, but players get there and they have nothing but glowing reviews about that place. And after your trip, that kind of solidified it for me. I think that's going to be up there on the list of, and I got to go see a game there one of these days.
Yeah, it would be great. I think we'd all have a great time. Take the wives up there. I loved it up there. I did. And I've heard throughout my time being a fan with the team, I've heard players don't want to go there because of the weather. More recently, because the team just wasn't very good either. But I've always heard people when they come out of there, they're like, man, once you go there though, and you see what's really like, it's so much more than just the weather. So to see it for myself was great. And I think, obviously Diggs sees it the same way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one of those receiver quarterback combos I'm excited to see over the next, couple years. When it comes to fantasy, I'm looking at Stephon Diggs. I know the situation that he's in, and he gets a lot of targets, he gets a lot of catches,
Yeah.
and he really helps that Buffalo offense go as he goes. It seems to be that passing game. I know Josh Allen. I mean, he's an MVP candidate coming up this year. So you look at Stephon Diggs, he is just as big of a part to that offense, in my opinion, as Josh Allen, probably 1B. But you take him off of
Yeah.
that team, and that passing game isn't nearly as prolific as it is with him in that lineup.
No, I absolutely agree. It's interesting. So you bring up the fantasy aspect. I saw just a little bit before we came on the show, a fantasy football analyst from the Footballers podcast. Apparently, there's a report coming out that Michael Pittman and Matt Ryan have gotten together already, getting their timing down, and they're going to breakfast together in the mornings. And it's a big thing because that's what Cooper Kupp and Stafford did last year in the offseason was they got together every morning, went to breakfast and talked football. And we saw what happened with that. And I bring it up because it was the same way with Josh Allen. As soon as Diggs was traded there, Allen got on the phone. He's like, "Hey, I know we're in this COVID mess, but let's get together." And immediately Allen and the receiving core, Diggs too, they got together. And it makes a huge difference. And even
Yeah.
this morning on Good Morning Football, Emmanuel Sanders was talking about that when he went to New Orleans. First text within like seconds after getting signed. Drew Brees, Peyton Manning did the exact same thing, and he said that the OTAs, the practice, all that's great, but it's that bond that you can develop with somebody off the field, and you get to know them as a human being, as a person, what they've been through, makes all the difference in the world.
I can tell you from a personal experience playing and having that rapport with the locker room. That is something that I miss so much, compared to, yeah, the pads are great, scoring touchdowns are great, all that stuff's phenomenal. But the thing I miss is those other 10 guys in the huddle, going to the sideline and just the jokes and going in the locker room after practice, going out to eat. One of my favorite stories is before we played a huge playoff game in Germany. It was all the Americans. We got together and we went to the most expensive steakhouse there in Rostock, and it is a time I will never forget. And so when these players talk about, yeah, the quarterback called them, these things are big deals because
Yeah.
there's a lot of trust that's put in to those relationships. Whether, a guy's breaking at 15 yards or 12 yards, you have to really trust a guy, and the receiver's got to trust the quarterback that he's not going to get him laid out either. And so
Yeah.
when you have a guy that you completely trust, it really it takes the skills that you have, that you can run fast, jump high, catch the ball, all those things that we look at as an athlete, but it really elevates that to another level where when we turn on the game on Sundays, you see Josh Allen throwing the ball well before Stephon is coming out of his break, because he knows where he's going to be. They've done it over and over again. They talked about it. They talked about a million different things. They know each other, and they just have this unspoken connection. And I just think it's one of the coolest things. And that's one of the reasons why I love the game, is because of things like that. Those things that happen that aren't in the limelight, those things that
Yeah.
don't show up in the stat sheet necessarily. It's those bonds that you create. And I mean, you hear about it. Emmanuel Sanders, by the way, has been phenomenal on Good Morning Football. Sign
He's
that
been
guy
awesome.
permanently. He's
Yeah.
been great. I love that guy's personality. But you
Yeah.
hear him talk about somebody like Jimmy G or other guys that he's played with, and the things that they say. I think, that's why, going through the draft process is so important for these franchises, because they really want to get to know the human being as much as possible before they
Yeah.
invest millions of dollars. And so when you see a Josh Allen do that, you telling me that those weren't questions or things that came up in the draft process with him? Buffalo knew what they were getting when they drafted him. So that's great news, and I'm a fan of Stephon Diggs. Obviously, the Minneapolis Miracle is something that's going to live on forever for Vikings fans. Well, I am sure that there's going to be some more plays that are made in some big stages in
Yeah.
Buffalo that are going to be etched in that fan
Yeah.
base's lore as well.
You talk about the locker room, the camaraderie. We know that I didn't play professionally or anything, but I was in the Army, did that for 7 years. So I kind of liken that camaraderie and the bond that your fellow soldiers have with one another, especially when you
Mhm.
go overseas. I spent time in Bosnia, I spent time in Iraq, and it's the same thing as far as the trust. You get to know these guys, you spend time with them 24 hours a day, especially in deployments. You really get to know them on a personal level, and that bond and trust, and you know that when the bullets are flying, they got your back, and that's huge. That is so huge.
It's the weirdest thing too as guys, right? Because
Yeah.
we never talk about like us, guys being like, super like we talk about our emotions and things like that. But you put us in adversity together, we'll be bro. It doesn't matter where you come from.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what you like to eat. The girls it doesn't matter any of those things. You just know that you've seen that guy go through some stuff that you've gone through too, and you have each other's back. And it's a for life thing. It's not like, hey, it's for the next 3 months. It's a for life thing for whether it's the Army or football or basketball. You hear
Oh
about
yeah.
those relationships, and that's one of the things I love about team sports. And I think that's the closest thing that you can get to like a military like atmosphere. But it's awesome that
Yeah,
those type of relationships is really cool.
it is.
It's absolutely awesome. Well, we got a draft trade. Okay, no players were involved, and this one was weird. Okay, this one was absolutely weird. So basically, let me pull this up here. So the Philadelphia Eagles and the New Orleans Saints made a trade, and the Philadelphia Eagles are giving up picks 16 and 19, I believe. They're
Yeah.
swapping with New Orleans to get the number 18th pick, and then there's a whole bunch of other, day 2, day 3 picks that are just kind of swaps. I don't want to
Well,
go into the details because like the super details about it.
Hi.
There's that NFL.com videos for you, Ronnie.
tell you what.
They are the devil, man. Um, it'll bore you to death when you talk about some of these other trades, but the big thing for me is number 16 and number 19 swapped basically with New Orleans. So New Orleans now has 16 and 19. Philadelphia has pick number 18. Ronnie, you were making some you had a comment about it that you were like, I kind of feel like I know what they're trying to do. So New Orleans is one of those teams that is in the market potentially for a quarterback, a long-term answer at quarterback. Do you think this is one of those moves to try to get that guy, or do you have other thoughts?
I think it is. Going back to the deal, I think personally, I think that the Eagles got the better part of this because they do pick up a first and a second in the next couple of years. So a first round in 23 and a second in 24. I think it's going to be huge down the road. But looking at the here and now, yeah, I think the Saints are looking for their quarterback of the future. I don't feel like they think that that's Winston. They were seemingly in the market for an upgrade, and they were, in the running for the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So they were clearly looking to upgrade, and I think that's what they're looking to do here. And I think Winston actually could be a good bridge quarterback, somebody that can
Yeah.
kind of hold things together for a year or two while a young kid learns. But I think with that second pick, I think they're going to bring in a wide receiver. I think they're looking to bring in a tandem together that will grow together and develop that bond together, if you will, that we were just talking about. Because we don't even know what's going on with Michael Thomas. And get that out there,
He's
Michael
scheduled to be
Thomas.
back, but
He
yeah,
is.
it seems like that relationship with what was going on with his foot or his ankle that they thought they were expecting him back midway through the season, and then all of a sudden, yeah, I had surgery on it. And they're like, "You had surgery on your foot? You're
Yeah.
gone for the year?" And there was no like, it didn't seem like there was a lot of communication, or at least he did that against what the team thought was best. So I would not be surprised. I think that's a great call out. I do think that they could do something like that. And there's a lot of receivers in this draft too. So do you
Yeah.
think they use a first rounder on that receiver? Um, I know they lost their left tackle too, Armstead. So
Mm-hmm.
he's gone. So there's some good offensive tackles in this draft too. I wouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
if they use one of those picks on that and say, hey, we'll get a quarterback and we'll try to solidify the line at the same time.
Yeah, it's very possible. And they could be looking at maybe packaging those two, the 16 and 19 together to move up. Depends on who they're eyeballing. If they're looking for, I think either Pickett or the kid from Liberty, lost his name now, Malik
Malik, yep.
Willis. If they're eyeballing one of those two, I think they need to move up. I have a feeling that those two will be gone within the top 10. But if they're looking at a Desmond Ritter, he could very well be there at 16, or the Howell kid, he could still be there at 16. So I think that they definitely have some options. They've built in some flexibility with these two early picks. At the end of the day, though, I think the Eagles got the better part of this deal just because of the load that they're picking up. Now, if they don't draft well, it means nothing, and we all know that. They could draft 5 busts with all those draft picks, and they get nothing, and the Saints get the next Drew Brees. Well, you never know until it happens, but right now, looking at it, I think the Eagles got the better end of that one.
Well, that would be saying that the next Drew Brees is in this draft class, and I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time seeing that. Especially the more that I study them. The more that I study these guys, the more stuff I find where I'm like, y'all, there could be a first round where there's not a quarterback taken. I find that to be very far-fetched, though, just because that there's still teams that need quarterbacks. And it always seems to be once there's one taken, the other teams that need them that are behind are just like, oh, we need to take one. You know what I mean? But just kind of look. Go ahead.
If these GMs call each other and be like, hey, look, we know they're not first round guys, so let's all just wait. We'll start in the second round.
Ronnie, that means these guys all get along, and we know that doesn't happen. You mean to tell me Bill Belichick's talking with your head coach there, and they're like, hey, I know what you're going to do. Let's not do. No way in hell. No way in hell. I know the 49ers would take a quarterback just to piss off Seattle if that was a thing, but they already did their thing. One thing I wanted to talk about with this move, because when I was already putting together my first round mock, and I have Philadelphia taking Chris Olave from Ohio State University at 15. The more that I look into this, I feel like he's going to go higher. But I do think that the Philadelphia Eagles have a need at receiver. So they'll probably take one at 15, which leaves, so New Orleans then is at 16. You have a guy like Kyler Gordon at a University of Washington, a cornerback. And we know that the New Orleans Saints, they love their corners. They love have a stout defense. Yeah. But also for pick 18, which what the Saints had before, I had them pick in Northern Iowa tackle Trevor Penning, the redshirt senior. So I can see them definitely getting a tackle in this. And I don't disagree with you. I think if Chris Olave was there at 16, they're taking him. Yeah. Period. Like, I think they'll take him. They'll figure out what they need to do at a 19 or whatever it is and see if a quarterback falls to him there. But I think you're right. I think we can see a lot of different ways that this draft could shake out because, you look at where Seattle's picking. They're picking at 9. We know, right now they got Drew Lock. And I'm all about second chances and things like that. And I think Drew Lock deserves a second chance, a legitimate one. But you got Baker Mayfield that's going to go somewhere. He's still sitting there marinating in Cleveland. I have a hard time envisioning a scenario where he's on that roster just because of the outbursts it seemed like that he had when he even found out that it was a possibility Deshaun Watson was going to be on the roster. Now he's on the roster. He's there. We know that he's probably going to serve a suspension, whatever that looks like, whether it's 4 games, 6 games, half the season. We don't know what that looks like. It would benefit the Cleveland Browns to have a Baker Mayfield potentially on the roster. But I still, again, locker room chemistry, I don't see that. So right. I do envision, I think Seattle is going to make a move for Baker Mayfield. I just have a feeling towards that. I think that as the draft goes, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a draft day trade potentially. I can't imagine that it's for that 9th pick. But maybe after day 1 or something like that, I could see, second rounder or something like that to get Baker Mayfield in the building. If they don't have their guy, right? I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle dropped down a little bit, but I think that move at number 9 is going to impact a lot of things for what the Philadelphia Eagles are going to want to do and what the Saints are going to want to do with those 2 first-round picks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I actually looked at a couple of teams ahead of the Saints, as far as not Saints, the ninth pick,
Seattle,
that could potentially take a quarterback as well.
Atlanta,
so Atlanta was one,
Carolina,
and Carolina is in there, and also I think there was one other one. Maybe that was just the 2.
I mean, you could make an argument that Detroit might want to, but it seems like I feel like that's really high to take a quarterback at 2 if they're committed to Goff, which it sounds like. And I mean, he's getting paid still a pretty decent chunk of change there in Detroit.
I think the rumors on that second pick is just that rumors.
It's on the block. I think the second pick from Detroit's on the block. I think they would be willing to kind of trade down or trade back, however you want to.
Right. Well, they have a number of holes, so they could definitely, use some extra picks. But yeah, I believe I think Atlanta and possibly Carolina take quarterbacks early, and that could, like you said, that could really dictate what happens with Seattle at 9, and then also with the Saints at 16.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I can tell you that New Orleans obviously liked 2 people as first rounders. They would not have made this move if they didn't have their eye on 2, right? So I think they have their positions of need in their minds. Obviously, I think it could be any of the 3 that we talked about: offensive line, receiver, quarterback. They could also surprise us and go a different way if a guy had dropped down to them. There's a lot of talk about, and I'm going to butcher the crap out of his name, but Kavion Theo. I got to get his name down for this. Thibodeau.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, that guy is, if you looked at his name, you're not going to get it right. But there's talk about him dropping potentially out of the top 10. And this time last year, when we're talking draft, he was almost a number 1 pick for, we're like, okay, 2022 draft, it's going to be him. Thibodeau is going to be the guy out of Oregon, but there's injury concerns. He did get hurt his senior year. Even before that, he wasn't having quite the year that people projected him to have either. So
he also got in trouble last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
He missed a little bit, some game time. There was one game that I was actually watching, and it was Oregon, and I don't remember who they're playing, but he had to sit out the first half because of his suspension. And I'm not going to say what for, because I can't recall exactly. I don't remember if it was, like in classroom type of stuff or something, but and I've heard a lot of reports since then on his character, basically, and his work ethic, his heart is comes down to it. So yeah, I've seen multiple mocks where he falls out of the top 10, and I've seen some where he still goes in the top 5. So it's going to be interesting to see where he lands.
There's a lot of, so I think as I've kind of really dug into the mock, the only for sure thing, like, and this is, I feel pretty confident in even placing a bet on this one, is that Aiden Hutchinson is going to go number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really feel like Evans? No, I think it's going to be Hutchinson. Yeah, I think it's going to be Hutchinson. I just think for what the Jacksonville Jaguars need, I think he'll pair really great with Josh Allen. They have another one. It's a linebacker. Yeah. But I think he would go really well there on the edge. And we know that when you have 2 guys, and that's what a lot of people have made trades for this offseason, is to pair up 2 together, right? And he had a really great, he's been a really good leader at the University of Michigan. His athleticism is off the charts. I mean, he tested incredibly well. And I think he's going to be rewarded with the number 1 overall pick. I think he's the most sure thing as a number 1 pick that you can have in this draft. Now, Nick Bosa, I think, would have been a great number 1 overall pick. I'm so happy he fell to number 2, and the Cardinals picked Kyler Murray. But I think you see these type of caliber players go number 1 overall. Even when Chase Young from Ohio State University, when he went, I mean, it was the same type of thing. So I really feel like he's going to go. I think Trayvon Walker, I think he's right there. You can make an argument, right? He's an interior guy, and that's the only reason I think I don't think you can take an interior guy number 1 overall. And as weird as it is to have that stigma on, I don't know if you can take a defensive tackle at number 1 overall. You could if you wanted to.
I mean,
But
you
when
could
there's
if
an
it's Aaron
Aiden
Donald.
Hutchinson on the board. Yeah, but I mean, Aaron Donald was he had a lot of stuff. He was a defensive tackle, but they were talking about him being extremely undersized for the NFL coming out of the draft. There was a lot of talk he might not make it in the NFL, and look what he's turned out to be. So you never know. But I just think pass rushers and quarterbacks, you get quarterbacks because they change the game. Well, you get a pass rusher because they change the game. So I think he's about as I really feel like 9 times out of 10 he's going to go number 1 overall. Do you have different thoughts with that, or?
Well, I was going to say my only counter really would be, and I haven't decided which yet, honestly, but would be Evans, because you mentioned it. Quarterbacks change the game. Pass rushers change the game. Well, who protects the quarterback and who stops those pass rushers?
You're talking about Evan Neal?
Yeah, the tackle.
Tackle out of Alabama. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Lawrence needs some protection, and I know they've done a little bit of work in that area as far as free agency, but you can never have too good of an offensive line, especially in the AFC, where they're loaded with pass rushers now, just like they're loaded with the quarterbacks. Yeah. Like everybody wants their quarterback, everybody wants to get the pass rushers in there now. So they're going to need somebody to protect Lawrence, because they did not protect him well last year, and it did not work out. So that would be my only counter to that. Like I said, I haven't made a determination one way or the other, which way I think they'll go just yet. But we'll see. We'll see.
Jacksonville has taken tackles early. And I mean, Tony Boselli was a guy that they took. I want to say he was the number 1 overall pick. I want to say that he was up there, Tony Boselli.
Yeah,
but
he was.
Regardless, no, you're absolutely right. The only thing is, I feel like, they're going to have the number 33 pick too. And this draft is deep, and you could potentially make, there's not an Aiden Hutchinson, I wouldn't say, at 33, but you could probably get a pretty decent offensive lineman at 33. So I think, as they go through their evaluation, that's going to be, something they talk about. But, when you look at a good football team and how they're built, right? And we've talked about 4 positions, and there's a reason why we're talking about the 4 positions: quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, and edge rusher. Well, there's a reason. It's because those positions are highly coveted in the NFL. They're highly coveted. If you have a good football team, you have good players at those spots, right? I mean, just think about what Buffalo has. Well, they got Josh Allen. They got Stephon Diggs. They got Jerry Hughes. Oh, and they also got Ed Oliver right in there. They got a pretty good offensive line too. So
hopefully
it's those. Hopefully, I would say that's probably that one spot that probably could use. They could use a little on the Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did match the offer for Ryan Bates. I know most people probably don't know who that is, but I know you and I have talked about that when he came into the lineup. Really kind of solidified things. So the Vikings, in fact, he was a restricted free agent. The Vikings offered a deal, and both was like, "Nah, y'all ain't getting him." So their line is set as far as their 5 starters. Whether or not they try to upgrade from there or not, we'll see. But the whole draft is the trenches. It is deep. There's a lot of talent that you can get in, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round for that. So that's a very good point as far as being Aiden Hutchinson being the first pick for that very reason. There's a lot of good, talented defensive linemen in the draft, but you're right. There's only maybe 1 or 2 Aiden Hutchinsons.
Absolutely. And speaking of the draft, next week, Ronnie and I are going to release our first round mock. It's not going to be our final draft because we're going to do that the Wednesday before the draft. But this is where we're announcing it to you, our listeners, just like we did last year. We're going to do a first round mock challenge for $50 to Buffalo Wild Wings. So please submit us your your first round mock drafts. Be thinking about those. You're gonna be able to go against us, right? So all you have to do is beat one of us. That's gonna be my deal. You got to beat one of us. You don't have to beat both of us, just one of us. Then you're gonna qualify, and then we're gonna see who's the best. But you have to beat. If we beat everybody, I guess Ronnie and I are going to Buffalo Wild Wings. But just like last year,
I'm
there
down.
were so many things that happened. And there was a lot of listeners. Last year we got 87. We got 87 first round mocks last year, and it was a lot of fun going through them. Last year's draft was amazing. This one has even more uncertainty than last year. There's a lot of big things that would happen that impacted things as they went. This one, I feel like there's a lot of gray area. There could be it's a very fluid situation. In this draft, but we want to throw that out to you. You can send them to. I'm going to make a Backyard Blitz Outlook. It won't let me change my name there, but go ahead, Ronnie.
Already done.
You already got it, huh?
Yeah. Backyard Blitz at outlook.com.
The Backyard Blitz at outlook.com.
Yeah.
Way to jump on that, Ronnie.
Yeah, it's just Backyard Blitz. So just Backyard Blitz.
That was probably taken.
Probably.
It probably was. Backyard Blitz at outlook.com. Send them there. We also have our Twitter page. You can send them through a direct message there or Facebook. We would prefer Outlook because they're easy to keep track of. But if you should, send it on Facebook Messenger. I'm not going to be upset if you send it through our DMs. I'm not going to disqualify you. Yeah, no. I want to see it flooded through. Because as we go through this, and we're just doing the first round, so we're not going to go into the second round and all that stuff. First round, and we're going to see who has the most right picks, and that's going to be the winner for $50 to Buffalo Wild Wings. So I'm excited about that. Speaking about that, Ronnie, I can't wait to do our first round mocks next week, and we have a special guest next week as well.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Same podcast that you and I were a part of. Like a month and a half ago now?
Yeah.
Has it been that long already? So yeah, he'll be joining us next week and discussing his mock as well as the two of us. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be our first guest of another show on our show. We've been guests of other shows, but we want it's going to be cool. It's he's an author of the Outdated podcast. He has a lot of stuff out there. They have 4 of them where they get together and they talk about the NFC North. He's a Bears fan, and he has other podcasters from Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit. I feel like they must just crap on that guy from Detroit. I got to ask him that question next week, but I'm excited about that. So tuned in. That's going to be next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So make sure that you're on here for that. Ronnie, we talked about the NFL draft, and we're going to talk a lot more about it in the upcoming weeks, but you got done with the little project that you were working on, and that is your pre-draft fantasy football ranking. So we all keep track of the players, and some of it is for fun. I would say a lot of us, spend a lot of time keeping up on the players and where they go for fun, but there's also a big number of us that keep track of that stuff for fantasy football. Where situations going to go? There's a lot of money to be had playing fantasy football. For those of you who don't know what fantasy football is, it's like Dungeons and Dragons for football guys. Basically what it is you have players that they're playing their game on Sundays, and you pick them before the season starts, and you kind of compile a team of players from all around the league. And their performance on Sundays earns you points. So, for instance, if Stephon Diggs catches a 50-yard touchdown from Josh Allen, he's going to get 5 points so 1 for every 10 yards, 6 points for the touchdown. If you're playing in a PPR, you're going to get another point for the catch. Sometimes there's bonuses for big touchdowns. And then good old Josh Allen, he's going to get some points too for that throw. And so it's a lot of fun. You end up watching teams that you might never have watched because you have players that are on that team, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, I need this guy to score and not that guy to score. And, you're like, you're a Washington Commanders fan. What are you rooting the Cowboys on? Oh, you have CeeDee Lamb on your fantasy team. I guess that makes sense. It feels weird. So that's what that's about. But you came up with your pre-draft fantasy football rankings, but one specifically that we're going to talk about that we had some discussion already today, and that's your quarterback rankings. So take it away, my friend.
All right. So first of all, I'm just going to point back here at this
Wow.
championship
Wow.
right here.
You
So
wow.
that's that's what you got to come for. But you ain't getting it. I'm not giving that thing back to no one now. So yeah, I kind of hinted a little bit on Twitter today. My top four, well, five. But I put it out there, a poll. I was just kind of curious to what people think of as far as my top four, and if they would put anybody up above that as the number one quarterback. I have Josh Allen number one. I don't think that's a shocker really to anybody. He was number one last season. He was actually number one the season before that too, as far as quarterbacks go. So, but the poll was very interesting. So I've got Allen one, Mahomes two, Herbert, and then Lamar Jackson. Of those four, Herbert's the only one that did not get any votes to be the number one, which actually kind of surprised me. I really thought that there would be some people out there that would put him up as number one because he can move around, he can run, he can pick up some points with his feet and get those rushing touchdowns. He doesn't do it quite at the level of Allen or Jackson do, but he can when he needs to. So I was a little surprised by that, but overwhelmingly, it's like 75% of the voters said Allen was their number one quarterback as well. I know you have some concerns with Jackson at 4, though.
I do have some concerns with Jackson at 4. First of all, Jeff Ramage, what's up, man? I got to show you some love. That guy's as big a football nerd as there is out there. Lamar Jackson. So my biggest concern with him is the style of play that he has. The style of play that he has gets him hit a lot more often than a lot of these other quarterbacks. He gets, and I know why you have him up there in your fantasy rankings, and rightfully so. Because when he is healthy, he's racking up not only passing yards, but he's getting those rushing yards, and he's scoring a lot of touchdowns, not just with his arm, but with his legs. Now his arm, they're kind of schemed open, whatever. But with his legs, he's chewing up a lot of yards. Yeah. And for quarterbacks, that's actually big because you get a point for 10 yards instead of a point for every 25 throwing, right? So I like that. But here's my thing. Tom Brady he's still in the league. Tom Brady's still in the league. He's still throwing touchdowns, and he's still with the Buccaneers. Bro, Tom Brady. And you know what? He throws a ton of touchdowns, and he throws for a lot of yards. And so I think he's just a consistent guy. And another thing is he doesn't get hurt, knock on wood for Tom. He doesn't get hurt. And that's a thing that I really like when you look at a quarterback that you're going to take as your QB1, because any one of these guys at 1 through 10 really is going to be a QB1 for somebody, right? They're going to be a QB1 for somebody. So if he gets hurt, that's a big deal. So I like Tom Brady because he doesn't get hurt, and he's consistent, baby. You're going to get 25 points from him a week, it seems like. Aaron Rodgers, I understand why you didn't put him up there, but this is the defending NFL MVP that's not in your top 4, right? And he throws for a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of picks. He doesn't get hurt that often. And I got to throw out one other guy, and this is your boy. You write for the Rams, Matt Stafford, who just got Allen. Oh my gosh, I just lost his name. The guy from the Bears, Allen Robinson. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, brain. Allen Robinson, and he's coming off a Super Bowl, and it's second year in Sean McVay's offense. So I definitely, he was a top 5 quarterback at the end of the year last year. He does throw some picks. He is in that offense for his second year is my selling point. That I think that him and Sean McVay are going to be clicking a little bit more. So any of those 3, I would gladly move above Lamar Jackson. I would be fine with all 3 of them moving up above Lamar Jackson for the 1 point, and 1 point alone is I think Lamar Jackson's brand of football is not made for a 17-game season. And it wasn't last year. He ended up getting hurt, and they don't protect him all that well either. He likes to hold on to it, run around, and take some hits. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on a little rebuttal on that.
Well, the simple rebuttal is this. Josh Allen plays the same way. I would even say that Allen is more physical because he doesn't slide. He doesn't go out of bounds. He's like hurtling and diving over people and shouldering.
Allen's a freak, though, and he's huge. He's not a small human being.
Lamar Jackson is not that small. And let's be fair. This is the first time that Allen or Jackson has been hurt, like significantly, and missed some significant time. You mentioned Brady doesn't get hurt. He missed a full season a while back, so it does happen. But you got Kyler Murray runs around, Jalen Hurts runs around, Russell Wilson runs around, Patrick Mahomes runs around. You can
Ooh.
make the health argument for all of these guys. You look at the running backs. When you rank them, you can't base the rankings off of, well, he might get hurt. Well, they all might get hurt.
Right, but that's not so that's different though. That's different though. Lamar Jackson, I will say, yeah, Russ runs around. You're right. Josh Allen runs around. I get it. But do they have the rushing attempts? Like I'm not talking just specifically like running around making plays like on a pass play. I'm talking about designed runs that are quarterback counters, that are quarterback sweeps, that are part of the run game. That's the part that has me concerned about them, where they're designed runs where teams are loaded up in the box and they're finding ways to stop him because they're finding out the dude can't throw. Not consistently enough to be able to be successful where they say, hey, I cannot put 8 in the box. I cannot be blitzing my nickel corner. I can't be doing X, Y, or Z to try to stop you from running the ball on me. They're doing that and saying, beat us with your arm. The Miami Dolphins, I think it was like week 10 of last year, they literally put 8 in the box and they played cover 0 with no safety over top and said, beat us with your arm, Lamar. And he got his ass whooped. I mean, so I definitely think that that's a factor for me, at least when I'm going through and I'm picking. Mind you, I inherited a team that has Lamar Jackson on it. Okay. Inherited is the key word. Okay. Not picked, inherited. But I think that that's a big key. But what's funny about, as I make this argument, I also remember an argument that I had made to you about Trey Lance, and he's going to be used in a similar type fashion. There's something about Lamar where I just have a feeling he's going into year 5, right? Year 5 in the league.
Yeah.
He's got one playoff win. Teams are starting to scheme him up a little bit. And that Ravens team around him, I honestly think that J.K. Dobbins is going to have a huge year because, as what Dawson mentions, he's going to hold off on those design runs this year because if Lamar goes down, it's a big deal. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to have a massive year. But to your point, what Jeff is saying, it's the high ceiling argument. Right. That's why you have him up there at 4. I assume.
Now, and I'll be honest too. So I rank these guys and I rank them based on what I think the potential is, what they could do. Does that mean I'm personally going to draft him? No.
Oh, come on, Ronnie. I want your insight here because we're in a couple drafts here together.
Oh, no, I know. So Lamar Jackson could potentially be the number 1 quarterback if he can stay healthy. But you can say that about, like you mentioned, any of these top 10 guys. So let me just go through the 6 through 10. We'll reveal the rest of them in another show.
So 5, you had Brady, right? 5 was Brady. Okay.
Brady, I had him at 5. He actually finished number 2 last year, I believe. 2 or 3 last season. But I got Brady, 5, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow, Prescott, and then Deshaun Watson.
Hold on.
Now
you had Kyler Murray above Russell Wilson?
Yeah.
Go on.
That's largely because of the familiarity with the receivers, the offense, the scheme. Kyler's been there for a couple of seasons now. He knows what he's got. He knows who he's throwing to. He knows what type of receivers they are. Whereas Russell Wilson's still got to come in and kind of learn that. He's got to learn that timing. He's got to learn that offense. Now, he's no rookie, so it's not going to be like a season-long thing where it's just going to be a struggle and trying to get the timing down and everything. But I think initially there's going to be a slow start. And I would not be surprised, too, if the Broncos come out. I mean, they've got Williams and Gordon. They can run the ball. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to get in Denver, and that's my biggest issue. I don't know what type of offense they're going to run. Are they going to be more run heavy? Are they going to be 50-50 balance? Are they just going to sling it all over? I don't know. With Arizona, I know what I get.
Okay. So Aaron Rodgers, where was he in that mix?
He's not in my top 10.
Holy cow. That
has a lot to do with the weapons.
You want to know what I was going to say? So he lost Devontae, right? So this isn't a knock on necessarily Aaron Rodgers' play. It's more
Correct.
along the situation that they're in. So that's my counter argument to your Russell Wilson thing. It's the situation that he's in and the games that he's going to be playing in that I think elevates him above Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is great for till week 11. After week 11, and what after week 11, what is big in fantasy football? What's big?
That's usually when you get your playoffs around week 13, 14.
Playoffs? Do you want me to break out Jim Mora? Playoffs. So for Russell Wilson, I think his situation, to me, and I normally would have him probably about the same spot in almost every year. Even if he was still in Seattle, I would have him probably 6 or 7. But the situation that he's in this year with the defense that he has, he's going to be in some track meet games with Kansas City, with the Las Vegas Raiders, with the Chargers, where he's going to have to put up some points. And it's going to be on Russ. I almost want it because of his situation. I know that there's unknown. I don't know what offense they're going to run and X, Y, or Z, but I got to think that they gave up what they gave up to have him be the focal point of that offense.
So I think the Seattle would have done the same thing, and they didn't really. They still wanted to focus on their running game. But also, you got to look at this too. Look at the defenses in the pass rushes he's going to have to face at least 6 times out of the season.
Yeah, that's a good
between
argument.
KC, the Chargers, and Raiders. So, yeah, I got him up there. I'm not a big Kyler Murray fan as a quarterback or as the person. After
this is for fantasy football.
Right.
This is not for NFL my guy rankings.
Yeah, and if there's one piece of advice I would give anybody that's just getting into the fantasy football, or if you've been into it and you just suck, think with your head. You cannot think fantasy football with your heart. It's just not going to work out.
Says the guy who I know, if he gets the opportunity, is picking Josh Allen in the first round.
Oh, no.
Ronnie.
No.
Ronnie.
I've never taken a quarterback, no matter what team they play for in the first round. I'm not that guy.
Okay.
In fact,
this is recorded. This is here.
In fact, I will tell you. So this trophy right here, let me show you again. Matthew Stafford led me to that trophy. Also, Cooper Kupp might have been on my team. You know where I drafted Stafford? Like 9th round.
Well, it's because you could get Stafford in the 9th round.
Well, yeah. But the point is
that there's going to be a guy that takes Josh Allen 6 overall. There's going to be that guy. They do it to Pat Mahomes. I see it in almost every draft, but you're absolutely right. You never take a quarterback in the first round. I'm just kind of giving you a hard time. I know you know your stuff with your fantasy football. But you also you get the best of both worlds because you get to be a fan of that guy knowing that he's a huge player for fantasy football too. That doesn't happen very often. I've had Jimmy G on my teams and thinking he's going to have a breakout type of year. And I've been waiting for it. It's never coming. It's just never coming.
Yeah.
They're going to turn around. They're going to hand off the ball to Debo. They're going to throw. If he throws to Debo, great. But he's only got 1 or 2 of those a game. He's also got to pick a game and all that stuff. So I am surprised, though, Aaron Rodgers, and I get the weapons and all that stuff. They have to be in the market for a receiver via trade somehow. I would think.
Yeah. And these rankings could absolutely change and probably will change over the course of the summer.
Change.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to change. They'll change after the draft.
Yeah.
We're going to see a wide receiver get paired up with a quarterback. I mean, think about where Joe Burrow's ranking might have been from year 1. Okay, they just got Jamar Chase. He just moved up like 8 spots.
Right.
And he might have been in that 15 mark last year because he was coming off an ACL and we didn't know what we were going to get from him, right? But then all of a sudden now you're looking at him going, dang, he's in your top 10. By the way, how much thought was there put into his situation, right? They've revamped their offensive line, which is the huge question mark that in Cincinnati. We saw what he did with Jamar and all his weapons. So I think you had him at 8 on this list. Walk me through your thought process on that as far as the people above him and how hard was that to not put him up maybe a little bit higher?
Again, it's not a knock on him as a quarterback. It's just this. The NFL is loaded right now with quarterbacks. Oh my gosh. And a lot of those quarterbacks ahead of him are more runners than he is. He can get around 2. But he's not going to get 500, 600 yards on the ground like Allen or Murray or possibly Wilson, all of these guys. So that's a big reason why I didn't. And again, I have to see the offensive line in action. I have seen so many times over the course of the history of the league where a team rebuilds their offensive line and it doesn't work. They don't
Yeah.
gel. There's no chemistry or whatever the case may be, and it just doesn't work out. I've seen it happen with Buffalo. I've seen it happen with a number of teams. We've seen Washington, Daniel Snyder spend bajillions of dollars building the super team, and they were terrible. It's not all about the talent. It's not all about trying to stack your roster with the best. You've got to have guys that can come together and can gel and have that chemistry and bond together and play well together as a team before you can take that next step and get to the Super Bowl and so on. So for me with the Bengals, I got to see it on the field. I'm going to be looking forward to OTAs, preseason, and see how these guys perform then.
No, you're right. I love his situation though. I love his situation. You're right.
He may
The
have the best
NFL's
receiver corps in
loaded.
football.
Yeah, the NFL's loaded in quarterbacks right now. It's a really golden age, and I think that we're going to have and they're young guys. We're not talking a lot of older players. These are young guys. When you talk about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, even these young guys that come in, and Justin Fields, I think he's going to have an outstanding year this next year. He's had a lot of wow plays. I'm excited to see what Trey Lance has to offer as a full-time starter. Mac Jones, seeing what he had, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. I'm excited to see we're in an age of quarterback right now that I think sometimes we just need to sit back and go, it's okay if the guy's not like the best quarterback in the league. He's still pretty damn good. And who was the guy that we had last? I can't even remember his name now. Blaine Gabbert, it just goes to that whole thing. But there's one argument here that I want to have with you. Aaron Rodgers lost a significant weapon on offense, right? He fell completely out of your top 10. Now, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have an off year. And I think it's going to be due to Tyreek Hill going to Miami. I think he expanded a lot of things with that offense, which you and I agree on. Yet he's still sitting there at number 2. Did you think about potentially moving him down your list a little bit because of that Tyreek Hill move? I know he still got Kelsey, and that probably solidified him there once you kind of did your thoughts. But walk me through that a little bit.
He may still very well drop down too. I honestly, when I was putting that together and I was looking at that and I was weighing him and Herbert particularly, it was difficult. It came down to the fact that they still have some weapons. They know they don't have the speed, but they did get Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think he's going to be, a solid addition for them. Mecole Hardman still brings some of that speed to the game. They've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's right out of the backfield, and then McKinnon, I believe, Jerick McKinnon.
So he's a free agent right now, so he isn't signed with them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got him on like a 1-year deal to kind of come in. But he's a free agent, and not to mention, who knows if they go after somebody in the draft? They still have weapons.
Yeah. So, and to your point a while ago, after the draft, this is going to change, and I might change it before the draft. Things happen like all the time. There could be a trade that we wake up to tomorrow morning. The other day, and I have to tell everybody this. So Brandon here and another buddy of ours, Scott, I'm out driving to another town, taking my stepson to school. I'm on my way back. It's a 45-minute drive one way, 45 minutes back, right?
And you can't text and drive, Ronnie. You can't.
No,
right?
Thank good for, hey, I got Apple CarPlay, okay? I'm good.
Okay. All right.
I can tell my car what to say, and I'm golden. So the car beeps at me, right? And I push the button to have the car read me the text. Stephon Diggs traded to the Chiefs. I'm like, what? No, that's not. That's simple. So, right. So I'm driving, right? So I'm not Googling. I'm not looking up anything. But then Brandon adds, oh, yeah, and he was traded for a 3rd and a 5th. I'm like, okay, at least make it believable.
Hey, you never know, man. Like some of these trades get wacky, and you think about compensation and all that stuff that go into Jimmy Garoppolo. Please get traded soon. Oh,
But yeah,
that one's driving me nuts.
yeah. So going back to the fantasy rankings, this is going to change. It's fluid.
Yeah.
I listen to the fantasy footballers, and one of their favorite sayings is "stay water." Just you gotta, constantly changing directions, constantly just staying fluid, because these things change all the time. So we'll see what happens. I will probably make my first big revision after the draft, and then as we kind of leading up to the draft, we'll reveal more and more of my rankings. But I love to hear from people on Twitter too what they think of the top 10.
Oh, and they'll let you have it too, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I was actually trying to spark a huge debate and argument on Twitter with that Lamar. As soon as I saw it, I go, oh baby, because I know your feelings of Lamar Jackson. Not the biggest fan of him as a thrower. I should say.
Right.
This has nothing to do with him as a person or anything like that. It's how he can throw the ball as a quarterback in the National Football League is where our criticisms come from. And I saw that, and I knew why you had him there, but I still was like, oh, I know this is highly controversial. And then the fact that, some people like to think that when you say fantasy football, that you're also ranking them in order of how good they are, like on the NFL. And that's completely not true. It's so different. You can have, Jalen Hurts and Scott, he likes to talk about this argument that he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback because of what he was doing with his legs, but not necessarily getting it done with W's on the field. There's a huge, Matt Stafford is a prime example of him being a good fantasy football quarterback, getting yards and touchdowns in trash time. Okay. So those things also, they don't have to be on good football teams. Sometimes you want a quarterback that is going to be down the entire game because he's got to throw, and that you're going to get production. You're going to get guaranteed production from that. That's why a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo does not do well in fantasy, but he wins on the football field, is that they're running the ball. He throws when they ask him to. They'll scheme things open for him or whatever it is. You might want him leading your football team, but you might not want him on fantasy football for sure. And there's even people that don't want him on their football team, which blows my mind, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. I keep trying to enter him in the conversation, just willing it to happen. Come on, somebody, Carolina. I know that you want him. You need a quarterback, but whatever. I'm excited to talk
after the
about
draft.
these. I actually wouldn't be surprised if it happened day one of the draft or during day 2 or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. But nonetheless, I'm excited to talk about these fantasy football rankings with you, especially when we get into like quarterback or receivers, running backs, where you think, defenses are, all great conversations. But these next couple weeks, our attention is 100% to the draft. It's right around the corner. It's the biggest event that there is in the NFL in the off season. We get to see a lot of these kids' dreams come true. Going to their they're going to go make a lot of money in the NFL. Their lives are going to change forever.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, whether they're a bust or whether they become, the next Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or whatever it is. These guys' lives are going to change, and they're going to have a lot of pressure on them from guys like us that sit there and expect them to do great things on our team. So our attention is going to change to that, and we're going to have probably the next 3 weeks, whether it's we're talking about mocks, probably the next 2 weeks leading up to the draft, or 3 weeks, I should say. And then after the draft, we're going to be having reaction shows, talking about what's going on and where we think's the best fit and who blew it and all those things. So there's a lot of action that's going to be taking place, and I'm excited to have those conversations with you, man.
Yeah, I am too. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to having our guest on next week and talk about our mock drafts. And honestly, this is the first time I've ever done an actual mock draft of my own. So in the past, it was just kind of like, Buffalo, draft this guy. Buffalo, why didn't you draft this guy? Buffalo, what are you doing? So this is the first year I'll actually have to pay attention to the whole league and put that together. So that's going to be fun. I want to say too, before we head out though, I did want to give a shout out to a couple of guys, a couple of podcast hosts. Their podcast is called Talk It Out You can find them on YouTube, Adam Raymer and Stephen Burton. They are the hosts of that. Some great stuff. They kind of talk about a little bit of everything, but they do talk a lot about football too. So go check them out.
Yeah, I got a shout out I got to give as well. So Christian and Joy Gilbert. First of all, they're friends of ours. We go to football games in Arizona to go see our Niners play. We got kind of like our 49er crew that we go to games. Well, I'm coming home, and this is after we went to go visit my parents, and there's a couple packages on the doorstep. I'm going, I know I didn't order anything. And I look over at Kimberly like, what'd you order? And she's like, I didn't order anything. Now I know it's not Berlin. So we go over there and I open them up, and it's a trivia book of the 49ers and then another sign. And there was a note that was in there that said, congratulations on your podcast. So I wanted to give them a shout out. They listen. They give us lots of love. They're all the way in Colorado. But I think it's really cool just to have that. Again, the thing I love about football is whether you're a fan or you play in it, there's a camaraderie between fans. Ronnie, I'm sure you can attest to wearing your Buffalo gear out, and somebody, has their stuff on it. Oh, hey, go Bills. And you don't even know that guy. There's no reason that you guys would ever have an interaction other than you're a fan of that team. And that's one thing I love about sports. It's one thing I love about the NFL. It just seems like that loyalty travels. And if you're wearing their gear and and I always make it a point to see, and I get some looks like, who the hell are you? And I get some looks like, yeah, go Niners, So it's pretty cool.
It is. It's awesome. Especially when that happens here in Idaho. There's not too many Bills fans.
Yeah.
So when you're walking across the parking lot and you hear go Bills, and you look over and you're like, go Bills.
And you probably know the guys though. There's only a handful of them.
In fact, I was going to tell you the other day at Berlin soccer game Saturday, we were standing there talking to. So after her game, we walked over and talked to some of our friends, and here comes some guy walking by a Bills hat. Go Bills! No idea who he was.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. Usually I get the opposite reaction. It's not somebody in the Niners thing. They either have a Cowboys hat on, they got a stupid Seahawks hat on, and they gotta try to give to you. And I just look at the Seahawks guys and I go, you really want to have this conversation right now? Yeah, well, and they give me that. But the Cowboys, they haven't had a playoff victory, and I can't remember how long. They always chirp. Always. That I will give their fans credit, man. They're them boys, and I love those memes every single year. You still them boys? You still them boys? Those are the best. So those crack me up.
That's great.
Well, hey man, this was an awesome show. I love doing this because we get a chance to talk football year round, and you kind of getting that little bit of juice again. We got the draft coming up, and we got that hope of our team's going to be picking some really good players. And I know. Do you guys have a first round draft pick? I can't remember.
Number 25.
25. We don't. We're at 61, so I'm having to wait an extra day. You never know what can happen, but
you could be the Rams picking at like 102.
Yeah, they're going to be interested in the draft in 2025.
Maybe.
Jeez.
We'll see what they do between now and then, though.
Who knows, man?
They haven't had a first rounder since 2017, so
yeah. They'll never be accused of not going for it, though. I'll tell you.
Yeah, something to be said for that.
Absolutely. They got the ring for it, so dang
it.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate all the comments in here. Much love. Make sure that you go hit the like button, subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All our credentials are right here, scrolling across the bottom. Again, we're at the BY Blitz, at Peebler22, at Ronnie Easom. Check us out on YouTube at the Backyard Blitz. Make sure you hit those notifications. Give us a rating though. If you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating, whatever you think that we did. Leave a comment in there what you thought about the show, what you think of the podcast. It definitely helps. So we really appreciate it. But until next Wednesday. Next Wednesday's a big show. Don't miss it. We'll talk to you then.
Mock draft. Let's do it. You guys have a great week.